Growing up, my older sister and I sometimes had different perspectives in our television viewing. In the living room, my sister would watch a show called The Waltons, while I would, in the other room, find a show called Welcome Back, Kotter. Now, as you can see, the Waltons is a family that lived in an era of economic hardship. They didn't have much, but what they had, they were thankful for, and they were thankful for one another. The Waltons portrayed life in a community, how to be a good person, how to be a good member of the family. All of this revealing what the family perhaps should look like. Now, for some reason, my parents allowed me to be in the other room watching this show. And believe it or not, these are supposed to be high school students. They look about 25. When I say they were remedial education students, they were probably remedial. Kotter is the name of the teacher that you see center view. He had returned to this school after being one of them to try to return to do good. Welcome Back, Kotter was a show about misfits. It was a show about people trying to find their way, and they brought something into television, or perhaps continued it, that was more about insulting others than being about family with one another. The contrast is stark between the Waltons and this group. Insult and dishonor became a cultural norm. We saw in the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s so many changes and so many turns, and in a sense we see in the 1970s in comedy and television, we see that coming full pendulum swing away from the crafted look of the family, where families were pretty and perfect and everything was nice, and every problem they had only took 25 minutes to relatively peacefully resolve until the very next show. What we want to understand today specifically about this show and those like it is that insult and dishonor became a cultural norm. Today I want to talk to you about becoming stronger by becoming a person who honors others. Now, that may not seem to have an immediate connection to you. If I honor you, it makes me stronger. But just stay with me for a few minutes, and we'll work this thing out. For our purposes today, words spoken sincerely, to acknowledge with strong emphasis the good character or actions of another person is what we're discussing of what honor for us is. Now, the ancients established for us what honor perhaps looks like. Now, you may have grown up with the phrase, honor your father and mother. All of those who are fathers and mothers are saying, wow, that is great advice. Those of you who aren't yet may not be quite convinced. But honor your father and mother, it's timeless wisdom. And for those who have given so much to you and given so much for you, I think it's probably pretty good advice. One of the misunderstandings, or perhaps limited understandings, is that honor your father and mother is simply a restraint that they point to you and say, honor your father and your mother, which otherwise means you better behave or else right now. But what I think is the golden wisdom from the ancients is this. Honor your father and mother is established in a context of relationship, and in a context where those who you are called to honor are those that you know very well, even their weaknesses. Honor your father and mother. Aristotle said, the training ground for honor is the token of a man's being famous. It's not supposed to look like that, by the way. Honor is the token for a man being famous for doing good. Not just for those who have done good, but for those who will do good in the future. Aristotle understood that when we honor one another, we look to the past, we look at the present, and we look at the future. We understand that as we honor someone, we almost as if we become the historian, but also we become the prophet. We see what was done in the past, we honor the present, and we look to the futuristic, what can be done. Before we even move further, I would ask this question for us today. Imagine what could potentially happen if you allowed honor to become the default setting in your most important relationship. How do you think that might affect that specific relationship? But also, how do you think that may affect you and your strength? Our modern world has some tensions with this idea of honor. There are some phrases. We think about self-care. Self-care is good, right? Especially when I need to sleep in the morning. I need a little self-care. Obviously, self-care is important because if we give of ourselves without caring for ourselves, we will burn ourselves out. Self-love is good. The wisdom of loving your neighbor as yourself flows from the idea of self-love. Therefore, if you don't love yourself, how do you are able to love others? But then self-honor takes a turn. And around this corner and down this street, we can imagine rulers and lords who build things to honor themselves. And we can imagine 21-meter-tall monuments and largest administrative buildings in the world to cement the names of people in history, or not, at least for a good reason. Self-honor seems for sure something that we want to back away from. But there is a sense that self above all else is an idea that people have latched onto. That self above all else is something that we seem to be drawn to like a moth to a flame. But the thing is about self above all else, it is incapable of delivering only human autonomy as a singular and highest good. And human autonomy as a singular and highest good is not capable of delivering for us happiness. Honor is unique. It stands apart from this thing we call reciprocity. We have these conversations with people with compliment, with self-disclosure, with invitation, with gift-giving. And we're familiar, it's like you compliment me, I compliment too. You, it's almost like the default. It's like the thing we do reflexively, Oh, I love your new outfit. Oh, and your new hairstyle looks so stunningly you. We love that. Who doesn't like to be complimented? Right? You don't have to answer. I know it's true. Self-disclosure. I have a fear of heights. A healthy respect for heights. You share, you're afraid of getting peanut butter stuck to the roof of your mouth. I don't know. But we love those moments when we're self-disclosing, right? Gift-giving. We love this idea. During the holidays, I give you a gift. And in return, I give you a gift. And we have this lovely gift-giving ritual that solidifies our relationship and lets us know that all is well. But what happens when that doesn't happen? I share some deep, dark secret of myself, and then you stare right back at me like some of you are right now. Oh no. Reciprocation is very needed. Or I invite a colleague to lunch, and I think we've had such a grand time. We've laughed, we've shared, we've drank. And then they never return the favor, and they never talk to me again at the office. Ouch. You can say it, that hurts. Ouch. Well, reciprocated behavior brings us comfort, but honoring detaches us from that necessity, from that need. It's different. It's unique. When we honor, we stand out on a limb, if you will. It is not tit for tat, this for that. It is, I choose to give you a gift, whether you give me anything back in return. And in fact, if it's returned, sometimes that makes honoring weaker as well. To honor another is to capture a sunset. In our current hometown of Klaipėda, Lithuania, the long golden moments of late summer sunsets provide so often these blue and pink and amber hues from sea to beach, from north to south. Beautiful, beautiful space. But even in a beach town, sunsets don't always get captured. After all, you can't see the beach from everywhere in town. And after all, we can't always just run to the beach when it's sunset. What we want to suggest today is that capturing the sunset takes intentionality. See, I've been reading of photographers who set up for days. And after days of being in a place, they capture the picture. And everybody says, "Oh, you're so lucky to have captured that thought." And they said, "No, I was standing in the mud for 6 days straight." This thing about honoring people, it's not about coincidentally saying something kind. It is about understanding who people are. I wonder if you would do something for me in this moment. Would you just turn to somebody next to you? Just look them in the eye. Everybody find somebody, turn to them. Just look at them while I say this sentence. Take a long pause to admire, to bask in the beauty that you see in another, to memorialize the epic moment representative of an epic life. That was really intimidating, wasn't it? You can look back at me. I so apologize for putting you through that intimacy, especially if that was a perfect stranger you've never met before, or something else. Who knows? Somebody may get married after that moment right there. I could have just spurned a fiasco, probably is what I started. Over the years, I've observed students growing stronger through honoring others. In 2016, when I began teaching public speaking in a high school, subsequently have taught public speaking at a university for the last number of years, always have had this idea of honoring others as a part of the curriculum plan. A number of years ago, I had a student named Catherine as we were doing one of these speeches. Catherine's from Honduras, great student, sweet person. She was going to deliver a speech to honor about her grandfather. And on the week that she was to deliver the speech, her grandfather passed away. Well, that was a little more than we had expected. So I called Catherine in and I said, "Catherine, you don't need to do your speech to honor for your grandfather. I have your manuscript. It's beautiful. I have your work. You're going to get an excellent grade. You do not need to stand before the class and deliver it. It was just last week, we understand." But she delivered the speech. She delivered it beautifully. She became stronger. And I can remember her stories clearly, and how her grandfather expressed his love for her grandmother, and even in his age of how he cared for the family. In another class, a student named Eric, who was from Armenia, delivered an honor speech about a friend who had been killed in war. Talked about a life that was shortened prematurely, unnecessarily. As Eric honored, we all honored his friend with him. We observed that as Eric honored, there was something about him that became stronger. A student named Emil from Estonia delivered a speech about a friend who had committed suicide. It was a very somber speech. It was an amazing speech. We were all convinced that we needed to cherish one another to the greatest extent that we possibly can. As Eric honored as Emil honored. We all honored with him, and we saw that he became stronger. You see, I think we get this backwards. To become stronger, we think we need to self-honor, but that's actually the reverse. To become stronger, we need to honor one another. Honoring is not just for the charismatic, the verbose, the talkative, or for those who otherwise like to hear the sound of their own voice. I certainly am not one of those people. I'm an introvert like many of you. I don't look for opportunities to even do this. It's kind of a random act of fate that I do what I do for a living. Who knows? It's because of that matchmaking moment in a few minutes. That's why I'm here. But I want to tell you that we're not just talking to those who like to communicate. We're talking to everybody. If I ask you who is the most quiet person in this entire room, if I could get you to raise your hands, which I know I would not be able to, you are who I'm talking to. You can become stronger by honoring other people. How do we do this? Number one, thank. If we're not accustomed to becoming someone who uses our words to speak positively, kindly, and even to the extent honoring, then this is a process we want to go through. Thank is just simply impersonal sometimes and transactional. It's a cab driver, a bus driver, a waitress at a restaurant. What people must do, just simply thank them. Let the words come out of your mouth. Thank you. Secondly, applaud. Applaud words sound like, you did great. I love the attention to detail in which you carried out this project. I love the effort that you put into this game and brought home the win. Applaud words are important. It's personal, relational. It is what people do well. And all around us, people are doing things well. So let's applaud. That almost felt like it was on cue, so excellent. Affirm. Affirm moves to a level of intimacy and commitment. It has to do with who people are, not just what they do, who people are. These traits like being loving and joyful and peaceful and kind, of diligent, of faithful, of self-controlled. People all around you have these traits and are expressing them. The phrase, I love the kind of caring friend that you are to me. Expressing those kind of words to others are important words to express. And lastly, these words of honor. As each of these have stepped up a little higher, a little stronger, a little more powerful, honor is this. It is transparent and vulnerable. A phrase like, you have made a difference in my life, I want to be more like you, is very transparent, is very vulnerable. To express to someone meaningfulness and significance is a very transparent and vulnerable situation. It expresses meaningful significance. And what I want to see here is that the power of this moment is that honor for the one receiving is one of the greatest, deepest fulfillments of human need. That moment when someone honors you, as far as the confirmation of that moment, is such a deep fulfillment of need. And while that's taking place, you who are honoring are facing one of the deepest fears you could ever face. That combination of meeting a deepest need and facing your deepest fear is a powerful moment that makes honoring a superpower. Honor another to grow your own strength. Let me finish with these words today. Honor is a gift that nourishes a soul, not of oneself, but another. It's not the thought that counts. Words must be allowed. To speak it is to give it life. Words bound and penned in must freely be given to remember and nurture the right. Everything ventured, Spare no cost. It is the gift you will never regret giving. Giving is gain, living outward the same, and honoring makes you stronger. Thank you for listening today.